Hey, yo, what are you doing? Got a new camera? Yeah, Nikon ZR. Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. I've been hearing a lot about it. What do you plan on doing with it? I don't know, maybe like shoot some reels, something with social media, vertical content. Oh, vertical content? Vertical content. Vertical content? Yeah. Oh, that's cool, I guess. Cool. Okay, let's talk about it. Yes, the Nikon ZR is a beast of a camera. It is a freaking Ferrari of a camera. But it's like a Ferrari that has flat tires, if you catch my drift. It's like you really can't just like bust it out of the box, slam it on the road, and it's just going, okay? It takes some time to get used to. And actually, I think when Nikon does push the update that really fixes the R3D and possibly the NRAW with maybe some like, slower data rates, basically it needs a little work, okay? And I think, yes, using it for vertical content is not really using it to its full potential. Although I will argue that as filmmakers, we know each other. When we're gonna make content, we're gonna make it with the best tools. We're gonna make it with, I know people that make vertical content with red Komodos and red cameras and just high-end camera. I mean, most of the people that do make filmmaking content on Instagram use FX3s, and the FX3 was considered like a freaking Ferrari in its day, right? I mean, even to this day, some people still hail it as king cinema camera, king cinema consumer friendly camera, right? The prosumer camera that is gonna up your content and that's gonna make it look as amazing as possible. And for me, that's kind of how I look at the ZR. It's not a one-to-one when we talk about ZR versus FX3, which is the debate that everyone is having online right now. But I think the ZR is one of those cameras that I think has this ability to be such a chameleon. It's a filmmaker's camera and it's a content creator's camera, and I'm both, and I feel like most of us are probably both when it comes to the creative who has a passion for filmmaking and is also in that social sphere of wanting to make social content, i.e. vertical content. So I think it's fair to use it for both, and I'm not using it just for vertical content, despite all the comments under my last video. I hear you guys and I get it, you know what I mean, but I will say it's not just for vertical content. When I did intend on buying this camera, the 6K was a huge point for me because I wanted to be able to crop in and get like maybe a different angle, with the 6K quality. And I think the FX3 is not a camera that you can punch in a lot on. And especially when you're doing like social media content that has a lot of movements and a lot of like different angles here and there. Punching in is one of those things. If you don't have like zoom lenses and if you don't have like super tight prime lenses, get a 6K camera. You're gonna punch in and you're gonna have like a reduced loss of quality. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to address that in this video because I just found it funny that I got so many comments on using it for vertical content, which I think is fair. I get it, I understand it, but at the same time, it's not just for that. I do also use it for horizontal content, filmmaking content, cinema quality content, like this spec ad you're about to watch right now.
I actually make this dish quite often. I learned how to make it when I was really young. My grandpa was the cook in the house and I became his little helper early on. I remember the day I tasted this dish for the first time and we both bursted into laughter because of how good it was. That's when I knew I'd also be a cook. I love the feeling of seasoning, combining, placing, mixing, and when you get to the cooking process, that's a different challenge. Having perfect timing, preparation, and of course your own personal touch to things. These are the moments I know I've learned something. I always say, anyone can cook. It just takes a little time and dedication. My students always ask how I have so many recipes committed to memory. And I always say, each recipe has a story, just like the one I'm telling you now. Cooking is like life. You live, you learn, and you never forget. Orders up.
That ad was really intended for a client. It was really just like an example pre-production type video where I shot something in the kitchen with my wife, and we were just gonna send it over to the client and have them take a look at it to get an example of what their content could look like, because I was gonna shoot for a restaurant, really talking about the history of the restaurant and, you know, the type of food they make, and maybe make it like an advert, something they can post on, maybe, you know, market like Facebook ads, or just advertise online in general, even something they can probably put on like local TV if they wanted to. But that's what that was for. So yeah, I wanted to showcase it and show some of the behind the scenes on how I shot it. So let's get into it. This was the beginning of the video right here, and this one I used the Nisi Athena Prime. This is the 35mm prime, my Nisi that I talked about before. This one I really think gave like a commercial look, you know, because I think the Nisi does give a really good commercial film look when you're shooting with it. There's just a bit of richness in the color and a bit of like density when it comes to like the dynamic range that your camera has. And I think this lens really, particularly with the Nikon ZR, it's not like the greatest at dynamic range, but it does have this special quality when it comes to dynamic range. It does the color separation really nicely, and I think the Nisi lenses really does lend itself to that separation of color. So you really get a good look of how there's a difference between the shadow and the exposed areas of the video of whatever image you're looking at. There is a really good separation with the Nisi lens paired with the Nikon ZR. So, and that's where I really wanted to shoot this part with that lens and really dial in the focus, because right here, this is where I was pulling focus myself. I really wanted to get a good focus on the knife, and then a little bit on my wife's hands when she's cutting. So, and that's why I wanted to open the video with this clip and also using this lens. That was really it, honestly. And I lit this with just one light. I also used the Edelkrone Dolly Plus. No, this is the Dolly 1 V2 that I have. And I put the FX3 on there, and I just had like a little slide in as I was sliding the ZR across my tabletop camera slider there, just to kind of get that little slight movement of when like she's cutting into the meat. So as I'm sliding, I had the Dolly 1 just slide up and get that shot. Yeah, so and then for this part, what I did was I got the ZR with the Nisi lens, and I put it on the tripod, and also put the tripod on top of the island, on the kitchen island, and I just kind of got an overhead shot. So just like flip that camera down, got everything overhead. So this part is where we got the chicken all cut up, and then she's gonna place it in the bowl, and then I just kind of like locked off the focus and just kind of like put everything in there, and then, you know, everything kind of looks, it's just a simple locked off shot. While I was getting this, I had the Dolly 1 slide across and then did like a slight turn. Okay, so now these shots where we're seasoning the meat, I also wanted the dolly to move. I put it back on like my right side and have it push in as I push in on the camera slider. So I was pushing in on the camera slider for every different types of seasoning that she used on the meat. Then I just pushed in and then got that shot, and pushed in and got that shot. But for this one, I only got one BTS shot with the dolly. And for these shots, I did switch to the Sirui 35mm, the Sirui Aurora 35. That's because I wanted to get a tracking focus. So what I basically did was had the focus locked on the seasoning, but I mean, it did kind of like, I think it like moved off of it once I got a little closer. I think the minimal focal range for these lenses is not the best. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a foot or maybe like 10 inches, possibly, who knows. But anyways, once I got closer, it looks like the focus kind of like dropped a little bit, but I mean, I tried with it, and I pushed in as she seasoned, and I had the dolly just kind of like, you know, push in on my right side as well. So yeah, and using the Sirui Aurora 35 really, I think, like brought the two together. So, you know, it was nice. It's just something I did at home, and it's fun to do. All right. And for like the stirring shots, I did that handheld, and I also did do it with the Sirui, but I wished I did it with the Nisi, because I could have just like pulled focus and I wasn't like doing a lot of movements, so I wouldn't have had to do a lot of like focus in. I wouldn't have to pull focus a lot because I was really just kind of doing like an orbit shot. Just kind of orbit around and I had like one like focus distance going. So like had that focus locked and then I just orbit around just a little bit, just kind of get some movements, you know. And I shot everything at 100 FPS just so I can have like the space to slow down a little bit. I didn't want to go full 120 and I was shooting at 4K on the ZR. Also getting the overhead shots of the pot. I just kind of like, I extended my tripod to its highest and I stood on one of my bar stools and just kind of like got the shot, and I kind of did like a little swing orbit from left to right over the pot, and I used the 35 as well, but I just kind of punched in a little bit on that one. And a lot of the cooking was actually done behind the scenes. I didn't record it because I mean the cooking was taking a long time, so I kind of just like put the cameras down and I figured I would just like get the last shot of the meal being served. Yeah, I didn't really record a lot of BTS for the rest of the meal being cooked because I didn't think it was important, especially when I'm sending this to that client. I just really, because I'm not gonna get a lot of the cooking because the video is really supposed to be about the restaurant, about the staff, and about the customers, and you know, just kind of about the atmosphere of the restaurant. I really just wanted to get like some shots of the kitchen and then the rest of the people. I did this one with the Sirui as well, which I felt like I probably should have did with the Nisi, because if I locked my focus off where the plate was gonna land, I could have just moved to that. Like, in the way I did it was, you know, swing. I kept it on the slider, kept it on the slider, and I just swung when the hands was coming in with the plate and placing it on the countertop. So I just kind of went like zoo. Now, if I kept using the Nisi lens, I would have locked the focus on where the plate was gonna land and just kind of like moved with that movement, because you really didn't need like the hands with the plate to be in focus. Like if it was out of focus and then came into focus as the plate landed, I feel like that would have been a little more artistic. So I wish I did use it with that. And then as I did that one, I had the dolly behind my wife slide in and capture that part of me sliding over and then, like, you know, hitting the plate when it gets on the countertop. And that's really all it took to shoot this. One light, you know, camera slider. This is just stuff I did at home with my wife, and you know, getting creative and trying to get more clients. So you know, I think more filmmakers, especially if you're now getting into the filmmaking field, should do a lot more of these at home. And you know, everyone says to do spec ads, and I'm trying to do a lot more, but I'm super new to like the super serious filmmaking game in this way, because I have worked behind the scenes on some other projects, but working for myself and making projects of my own, that is kind of like it's a task to try and build a portfolio. But I'm doing it, and yeah, I think this is my first video breaking down a BTS. Hopefully it did good, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. So thank you for coming to this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.